a 170-pound Rottweiler that 3 families returned, a shelter that warned everyone to walk away, and a man who didn't listen. 6 days later, at exactly 3:22 a.m., that dog cornered an intruder in the kitchen and didn't move for 13 minutes. This is the story of Diesel, and nobody saw it coming. The shelter worker looked Carter straight in the eyes and said it plainly, "Don't do it." She wasn't being rude, she wasn't trying to make his morning difficult. She had worked with dogs for 11 years, and she knew exactly what she was looking at. A 170-pound Rottweiler with a history. A dog so intensely protective that 3 separate families had walked him back through those same doors. A dog the staff had quietly started calling the judge, because once Diesel decided something was worth protecting, nothing on earth was going to change his mind about it. Carter listened to every word she said, and then he looked back at Diesel. Diesel didn't bark, didn't pace, didn't perform. He just sat there, massive, still, dark as a storm cloud rolling in from the west, and looked at Carter with those heavy, unblinking eyes, like he was the one doing the evaluating, like he had already made his decision and was simply waiting for Carter to catch up. Carter felt it, that pull, that strange wordless certainty that doesn't come from logic and can't be argued with. "I'll take him," he said. The shelter worker exhaled slowly. "Sir, he's been returned 3 times. I heard you. He's not aggressive, but he is intense. He doesn't let things go." Carter almost smiled. "Neither do I." Diesel hadn't always been a problem. His first owner had raised him from the puppy on a working property outside of Knoxville, a man who needed a real dog for a real job. For the first 4 years of his life, Diesel had a purpose, a perimeter to patrol, a reason to be exactly who he was. Then the owner relocated, a condo in the city, no yard, no land, no reason for a 170-pound Rottweiler whose entire identity was built around keeping something safe. The first family who adopted him lasted 11 days. They said he followed them from room to room without a break, that he stood between their kids and anyone he didn't recognize, that he would go completely rigid at sounds they couldn't even hear. Too much, they said. Too intense. The second family lasted 3 weeks. Same story. The third lasted 5 days. By the time Diesel arrived at the shelter for what everyone assumed would be the last time, he had spent 231 days behind kennel doors across 2 different facilities. Staff fed him, walked him, cared for him, but nobody stayed. Nobody claimed him, and slowly, quietly, the light behind those dark eyes started to go somewhere else. He still did his rounds every morning, still watched every door, still positioned himself between the staff and any unfamiliar sound at the end of the corridor. Some things don't break, they just wait. Stories like his are exactly why some dogs spend their whole lives looking for the one person who finally makes sense. Carter owned a farmhouse 35 minutes outside the city, 11 acres, a long gravel driveway, the kind of property that sits completely dark at night with no streetlights, no neighbors within reasonable distance, and no margin for error if something went wrong. He had been looking for a protection dog for 7 months. He hadn't been looking for this dog specifically, but there Diesel was. The plan was straightforward. Ease him in, spend the first week at the city house, let Diesel decompress, learn the rhythms, figure out who Carter was before introducing him to open land. Day 1, Diesel mapped every exit in the house within 90 minutes. Day 2, he chose his sleeping position directly in front of the front door. Not the dog bed Carter had set up in the corner, not the couch, the front door, like the job description had already been read and accepted. By day 4, Carter began to understand what those 3 families had been afraid of. Diesel didn't bark at sounds. He went silent, head up, ears forward, body locked, like something carved out of patience and purpose. He would hold that position completely, almost unnervingly still, until whatever he had detected either revealed itself or moved on. If you didn't understand what you were looking at, it would stop your heart. If you did, it was one of the most extraordinary things you had ever seen. I see you still haven't subscribed. Honestly, that breaks my heart. Hit that subscribe button right now. You don't want to miss what comes next. It was a Wednesday night, 6 days into the first week. Carter had gone to bed around 10:45. The house was quiet. The deep, specific kind of quiet that only exists when you're far enough away from everything that the world simply forgets you're there. At 3:22 a.m., Diesel went completely still. He had been resting near the bedroom doorway, but something, a sound too faint for human ears, a pressure shift, a shadow moving against the grain of the night, pulled him out of sleep instantly. No slow stretch, no groggy repositioning. One moment he was down, the next he was standing in the doorway, every muscle loaded, facing the back of the house like he had been waiting for this exact moment his entire life. Carter didn't hear anything, but he felt the room change. He opened his eyes to find 170 pounds of Rottweiler standing perfectly still in the doorway, staring down the hallway with an intensity that made the air feel different. Then came the sound. Glass. Settle. Almost nothing. Almost. Diesel moved. Not with noise, not with chaos, with the kind of quiet, deliberate precision that is somehow more frightening than aggression. Down the hall, around the corner, into the kitchen. By the time the intruder had gotten one leg through the broken back window, he found himself looking directly into the eyes of something that had absolutely no intention of letting him finish what he had started. Diesel didn't attack. He didn't need to. He planted himself 18 inches from the man and held a sound from somewhere low and deep in his chest. Not a bark, not quite a growl, something older than either of those things. Something that communicated with complete biological clarity, "You are not going anywhere." The man didn't move. He couldn't. He was wedged between the window frame and a dog that outweighed him by more than 40 pounds and had decided, in that ancient, absolute way that certain dogs decide things, that this was his house and this man had no right to be in it. Carter called 911 at 3:26 a.m. Officers arrived at 3:39. In those 13 minutes, Diesel never moved, never shifted his weight, never broke eye contact, never gave a single inch. Some dogs are trained to protect. Diesel never needed to be. It was simply what he was. It was all he had ever been from the moment he first understood the word home meant. The officer who took the report looked at Diesel, still positioned in the kitchen doorway, still watching, and then looked at Carter. "That's some dog," he said. Carter didn't answer right away. He just placed his hand on Diesel's broad, heavy head, and Diesel leaned into it, slowly, fully, the way a dog leans when he is finally, after a very long time, arrived somewhere he recognizes. 3 families returned him. A shelter held him for 231 days. Everyone who encountered him saw the size, the stillness, the weight of his attention, and they walked away. None of them saw what Carter saw that first afternoon through the kennel glass. Was it instinct that made Diesel wait all those years, or was it loyalty to something he hadn't found yet? Tell me what you think in the comments.